So let's start with this chart because it is confusing. We showed 8 resolved. What are the 5 that have been resolved since you provided us this information?
And so my apologies, because I'm not sure what it is that you have in front of you.
Why don't you just read the numbers that you,
the numbers? Okay.
that you believe are resolved.
Number 1.
Okay.
Number 8.
Okay.
Number 12.
Yep.
Number 15 and 16.
Yep.
Number 22 and 23.
Hold on. 22's over there, 23's over there, okay.
Number 33.
Okay, these are on your red list.
I'm sorry?
Okay, that was on your red list, but go ahead. 33.
35.
Okay.
36, 37, and 38.
Yep.
And then number 40.
Okay. I had 13 as a green. Is that not a green? Is that not resolved?
Number 13. We are in progress.
So 13's in progress. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13. Okay. Ms. DeZera, do you agree with that? Did they resolve those?
I don't have an opinion on where they're at with their current.
So they haven't given you any information that they're resolved?
No, we don't have any of that information at this time.
Okay. I say that because I have no confidence in the information being presented by the department. And the reality is that this department, I don't care if you went from 60 to 40. I'll grant you the 13, you're at 27. At 27, you're one of the worst run departments in the state of Illinois. I don't know why the 2 worst run departments in this state are the ones that deal with the lives of people. You guys in DCFS. We are being fleeced as taxpayers. We are putting people's lives at risk, the men and women that work there every day, as well as the inmates. We're going to have a little discussion. Because what I find in some pretty broad categories here, let's start with, quite frankly, broken laws. We violated federal law. Well, I'm sorry. We didn't do anything. You violated federal law in one of the findings. We also have not complied with state law. And with all respect to everybody, I love this idea that we're going to pass laws later on to try to fix the laws that were passed. But in the meantime, you're still supposed to comply with them. You can't just ignore them. So we've got federal law violations. We've got state law violations. It is sort of the ultimate in ironies that you're housing the people who we accused of violating the state law, and then you guys are violating the state law. Resolve that irony. We've got standard negligence. 70% of vehicles didn't get oil changes. And then somehow we're supposed to have emergency procurements for new vehicles. I don't know. Is there any correlation? Is there any correlation between the vehicles not stopping, not working, not filling out accident reports? Is that negligence or malfeasance? I don't know. Lost money, 40% of refunds were not properly entered, 20% of commissary accounts are messed up. And we still have 27 findings. I haven't gotten to safety, which is the most important thing. Safety for the people that work there and safety for the citizens of the state. So let's look at a couple of these safety items. Failure to provide offender resident information to appropriate parties. That's a pretty big frickin' deal when you're the victim of a crime and nobody knows that bad guy was let out and might be walking down the street today. Didn't take care of the safety on that one. Non-compliance with the Murder and Violent Offenders Against Youth Registration Act. Another thing you didn't do. Here's a big one. Failure to report data on the uses of electronic and GPS monitoring. That's a big one. Inadequate controls over population of individuals in custody convicted of a sexually violent offense. Inadequate controls over population of individuals in custody convicted of a sexually violent offense, including DOC providing a list of sex offenders in their custody that had individuals in it who were not convicted of a sexual offense. Can't imagine what happened to those poor guys or gals in your care when people around them were told they were sex offenders. Non-compliance with standards of safety and sanitation. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen for the taxpayers to pay. Oh, here's the one that was federal law violation, compensatory time accrual in violation of federal law. That's on the heels of the other fleecings of paid time, paid leave time while working overtime the same day. And then we get to emergency purchases. 70% oil change is not done. You were at $850,000 worth of 50 vehicles in an emergency purchase, followed by another 50 vehicles in an emergency purchase, followed by 20 passenger vans in emergency purchase. What's the, this is the best one. $692,640 for sliced bread in an emergency purchase. Isn't it foreseeable that you need bread to feed inmates? I mean, I know we're a little bit, further down the pike than maybe, Papillon days and, going to French Guiana. But I would think that bread is a pretty big item that would be routinely ordered in the Illinois Department of Corrections to serve the inmates. Somebody tell me how we spent $692,640 on an emergency purchase for bread. How is it not foreseeable on a regular basis that we need to order bread for the inmates? I'm telling you right now, you've got 27 violations left. Okay. At the end of the day, I have 3 guards stabbed. I got an inmate dead. And you know what happened last week from one of your approved vendors? One of your approved vendors at Robinson sent a children's book laced with $500,000 worth of drugs into Robinson Correctional Center by your approved vendor. When does it end? When are we going to put the safety and security, first the people of Illinois, and as importantly, the men and women that live in these facilities, priority number 1? When is this going to get fixed? That was not a rhetorical question.
All right, so thank you again, Senator. So you've gone through a number of things. I think maybe it's best just for us to start ticking off each one of them to the best of our ability. People have jotted down the ones that he went over. But Chief Brunk, do you want to start with the emergency purchases, and then we can go through some of the others?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, for your questions. So with respect to the bread, the Illinois Department of Corrections makes its own bread. We make it at Illinois River. It's one of the industry's programs. However, during the audit engagement, the vendor that was on contract to provide the raw materials in order to make the bread at the Illinois River Bakery was unable to fill our orders. They indicated that there were issues with the supply chain in getting those products to the bakery. As a result, because we have have bread on our master menu and it must be provided, we procured the sliced bread.
All right. I believe that there was a question about maybe audit finding number 40. And so as it relates to that one, the department has initiated a process to report delivery process, including email when able, and United States Postal Service redoubled its efforts to record case notes within its current case management tracking system of those deliveries, including time, date, and method. In addition, the department is in the process of working on an automated progress report delivery system via electronic methods. I believe finding number 34 may have been referenced. Assistant Director Williams, do you want to speak to finding number 34?
Hello, and thank you. My name is Alyssa Williams. I'm the Assistant Director for the Department of Corrections. So in relation to the sexually violent persons, and Senator Rose, I'm glad that you brought that up. There is some strangeness about that murder and violent offender against youth registry, because some of them, if there is no victim age attached to a statement of facts that's provided by the state's attorney or the courts, it's difficult to ascertain whether or not they would have to register for an adult victim or a child victim. So some of those people that you indicated that were inaccurately registered often did not have a victim's age. So we would have to see what register they would go on, if any, given their date of conviction. So with our SVP population, it's another population that we take a look at. We have to evaluate each and every one of those individuals for civil commitment, as I'm sure that you remember since you are a prosecutor. And so each one of them are evaluated. Sometimes it's a manual process that we have to take a look at, because again, as indicated before, we are working with DO-IT on a whole redo of our system.
So does
with
the
that
minimus does the minimus you receive, which for those playing along at home just means the statement of facts.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Does the minimus that you receive, which is simply the statement of facts of the charge, does it not contain the charge of what they were convicted of?
It contains
Every
a charge, but it
minimus I
often
ever
doesn't
sent.
contain the victim's age, which is very relevant when it comes to registry.
Okay.
Would you like me to continue with my answer, or
Yeah, please.
Okay, so we evaluate those individuals. So each and every SVP is certainly marked. But again, when it comes to victim age, for particularly the murders, because some murders are sexually motivated, others are not. So for those not sexually motivated murders, they would not go for a further commitment or a review of SVP.
Again, respectfully, we've been down this road for 30 years or more with sexually violent persons. maybe close to
1999.
40. Okay, fair enough. So you're at 36 years of this. And you're telling me that in 36 years, you guys haven't got the process straight to get the right information coming in, it's someone else's fault?
No, I'm not saying it's someone else's fault. We diligently work with the courts to get that information, but sometimes it's not available nor provided to us. So again, we go through multiple hoops to get that information.
All right. I can't believe that in 36 years we couldn't have solved this.
It is
on
difficult.
something this important.
Yes, with the most legislative changes relative to sex offenders between 2004 and probably 2010, it does make it complicated indeed.
Right.
So we continue to strive to do our best to monitor the population.
More than 20 years ago.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear you?
That being more than 20 years ago, those changes.
Yes, and we have
And
made significant
we
improvements.
can't figure that out in the meantime? Okay. Look, you guys can tell me whatever you want, but let's go back to the passenger vans. What was the emergency procurement of 50 passenger vans? That's a lot. I mean, if one breaks down, I get you got to go buy a van. But what's the justification for 50 passenger van procurement?
Yeah. I think we have to keep in mind that the department was not where it needed to be as it relates to the passenger vans to begin with, right? That fleet had been depleted. But Chief Brunk, do you want to talk a
Right,
little
but
bit about
that's,
that?
you just made my point, Director. You knew the fleet had been depleted. Instead of going through the regular procurement process, you went through emergency, which waives all kinds of very important rules to make sure the taxpayers get value for their money.
No.
If you're buying in bulk, 50, 50, 40, another 20, how is that an emergency? Or
No.
versus a failure to plan?
Nope, I understand your question. Chief Brunk.
Thank you for the question, Senator. So the department had planned on utilizing, just like it had in previous years, the master contract set up for vehicles such as the passenger vans. However, when we went to utilize the contract, the vendor said they could not fulfill our orders. So the only way that we could move forward with a purchase during the audit period for that fiscal year was to declare the emergency.
Say that again.
The master contract that was set up for, excuse me, the master contract that was set up for agencies to utilize, when we went to use it, the vendor was unable to fulfill the order. So in speaking with CMS and in speaking to the CPO for General Services, the decision was made that in order for the department to procure vans, the best course of action would be to declare the emergency.
How long, when did CMS become aware of the fact the vendor could not make its?
I don't have that date. We do communicate with CMS regularly on our vehicle needs, and I'd be happy to get that information.
Hilarious. Okay. So at the end of the day, we're down to 27 findings, which is still makes you one of the worst agencies in the state, but it's all somebody else's fault. Is that what we're saying?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay. So let's go back to Robinson. What is the process within your department when an approved vendor sends a children's book into the facility worth $500,000 in street drug value?
So generally speaking, if a vendor in any circumstance is discovered to have sent in an item, there's an investigation that takes place, and all of the appropriate parties are notified. Once the investigation is completed, then if there are appropriate charges, then those charges are requested. If there is a need based on the investigation to stop that vendor from participating, then that is done as well. But again, it's based on what is learned during the investigation.
I would think it'd be a relatively quick investigation because you know who the vendor is and either they did it or they didn't, right? Someone stood in and took over, you know, I would think that would be an easy investigation to undertake.
Again, I would leave that up to our investigatory team, but I don't know that I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I'm clear on what you're talking about, but the information that I have about that is, it may be a little bit different.
Well, let's just take a hypothetical. Somebody sends a book laced in fentanyl into one of your facilities with a high street value on it.
Right.
Is there an investigator that goes out and actually tries to investigate where that came from?
Oh, absolutely.
Is the U.S. Postal,
Absolutely.
is the postal inspectors involved in this?
Oftentimes, yes.
Okay.
Oftentimes, absolutely.
Let me ask you about the $200,000 procurement to Logan to determine the environmental impact of demolishing and cleaning up 2 sites. So you haven't demolished anything. The building's sitting there. What was the emergency that required us to go around the emergency procurement? What was the emergency there? To find out the environmental impact on something you might tear down? Because in my life, when we do these things in my real life as a lawyer, that's just part of your due diligence that you do as part of planning anything. It's not an emergency. It's part of your DD.
No, I understand the question. I believe the one that you're speaking of had to do with the COGFA process, and there is a specific time frame related to the COGFA process that would have required us to have that assessment done within a particular period of time. But Chief Brunk, if you want to speak more to that.
Yes, thank you, Director. Director Hughes is correct. The State Facilities Closures Act requires that an environmental impact study be filed with COGFA 30 days after the notice. In order to comply with that mandated timeline, the procurement method was an emergency.
This is absolutely fascinating. Right, but let's be clear on something here. The discussion around closing Logan, and what was the other one? Was it Stateville and Logan, both, right? That discussion was going on for, as I recall, 2 or 3 years before it happened. So again, what's the emergency? I mean, you guys knew you had authority on that well before the notice was filed in COGFA. You knew what you guys were going to do well before the notice was filed with COGFA. So how is this not a problem of your own making?
Sir, I can't speak to the 2 to 3 years in advance that you were speaking of. I can speak to the fact that the mandate was 30 days from the date that COGFA was notified, which is what we complied with.
Okay, I'm letting you off the hook. The director knew well in advance of 30 days that Logan was going to close, okay? Most people in this building knew that conversation was going on for years. My point is, you filed the slip presumably knowing what you were going to have to do to close it, and yet suddenly this emergency has been created when you've been studying it for years. We don't have to go on, but I've got emergency procurement after emergency, $40 million for medical services. Again, that we knew what the contract was coming to an end, and then we got a $40 million medical service contract. We got all these vehicles. We've got, I'll give you the $3 million for COVID-19 testing. I'll grant you that one. But there's literally nothing you guys can say that I will believe. And honestly, it's about the safety of the people of this state and the safety of the men and women that work there. And then, quite frankly, the inmates are in our care and custody. And to the extent that they get hurt, injured, or die, we get sued, the taxpayers pay for that. I'm going to bring this conclusion, and I'm going to talk to my committee members about whether we even accept this audit today or we hold it open for some more compliance on these items.